functionally, when you put them next to each other on this, they are just about the same value. You can see them jumping around because my hands are moving and I'm not staying stable, but they're right around 750, 740, and now I'm so close to the light too. So not viable measurement point here, but just look at the similarity of them. Now, let's move over to this fixture here, which has the far red applied, and you're gonna see two very, very different values. So on the left side, you have your PAR sensor, 400 to 700 nanometers, and on the right, you have your ePAR.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Grow Room Weekly.
Welcome.
I'm Alex.
John.
Today we're going to be doing a quick check-in in rooms 2, rooms 3, and then popping into room 4 to kind of talk about the difference in sensor measurement when using far red and without using far red, and what kind of equipment you need.
Yeah, lots of different instrumentation. Not everything is applicable to everybody, but we've kind of shown a good measure of what everybody could use to get good measurements on what's going on in their rooms from a lighting perspective.
Yeah, and what tools to actually spend your money on and buy and where it helps. So make sure you guys check it out. Something that we were just talking about is kind of inconsistencies in veg and what that looks like for the trials. So I'll let John talk about what he kind of noticed when we walked in here.
Yeah, so this is everything that's slated for the room 1 trial. You know, one thing that I've seen in this room consistently is that every time I walk in, especially since they've replaced the top lights here with the under canopies inverted, is that it's always been very uniform. And that's really, really impactful and really good for me as a starting material going into a room. But this time, today as I walked in, I couldn't help but think, wow, we have a lot of variability from plant to plant, not just across the board because there are different strains in here, but within a strain. So for example, within this population here of this strain, we've got a lot of height variability, and we also have a good amount of what looks to be some internodal elongation variability. And I think, you know, I have to talk to the GM, talk to Kyle here about what the moms look like when they cut it, but I'm expecting that these were probably towards the end of a mom restart. So from a R&D perspective, when it comes to the data collection, particularly in our trial zones, you know, what I look for when I have a decently uniform canopy is just put them in and put them in at complete random positions. And that randomness helps me control for selective positioning, where you might selectively put in one treatment zone, we might accidentally get plants that are starting at 20% larger than others. So that randomization of it is very good, is key to getting a good starting point. However, when we have this amount of variability, I kind of have to deviate from that a little bit.
Yeah, and so something that I like to consider for the production-wise conversation of this is what plants you place your irrigation sensors in. I like to put my irrigation sensors in the most average plant of whatever that grouping is.
Yep, and now with the new sensors in room 1 that are going to be going in, you know, we're going to have 4 recording zones per table now.
Yeah.
So that'll allow us to have, you know, per strain, we'll at least have one of those sensors per treatment zone as well. So now we're monitoring the treatment zones and the table level as a whole for that strain.
Cool. Off to room 4.
Let's do it.
Cool, guys. So this is room 4. Today is day 8. We're doing a trial replication of last time. I'll let John touch on that. Everything's looking super, super nice and healthy in here. Day 8 is a really important time for like our irrigation style. This is usually where we start seeing full bud set and bud expression. And so this is the perfect time to come check in this room.
So this room is a replication of the previous trial that we did in here. It's also an expansion on that because we have an addition of one more treatment in here. So table 1, no under canopy at all. This is Tim's baby right over here. Table 2, we have under canopy lighting, but we do not have any far red lighting included in this at all. Table 3, we have our under canopy lighting, and then we also have 5 minutes of far red at the end of day. Table 4, during the photo period, we have our normal lighting. We also have 5 minutes end of day far red. And then in addition to that, we will starting at about day 18 or so, when we make that switch into bulking, we will be adding in photoperiod far red. So 100% of the channel for photoperiod, and still maintaining that 5 minutes end of day. And then table 5, this is the most uniquely different right now also, is that we have, since day 1, we have 5 minutes end of day far red and full photoperiod far red. So when the lights come on, they have 100% channel of that far red during the photoperiod and continuing that 5 minutes end of day, all since the beginning of this trial that started. So when we look at these different treatments in these experiments, they have strong implications to irrigation. I don't think we're going to get too much into top on that today, but that is a great topic for the drivers of irrigation.
Yeah, and so I think next week would be really, really good to talk about how that lighting plays into irrigation-wise, but I do want to cover like the differences in measurements on what we're seeing with far red and without far red, and like kind of how we're putting that into play here.
Yep. Come on over here and let's take a look at a couple of toys that I brought into the room. Our first sensor is a PAR sensor. This is conventional photosynthetic active radiation. It records the amount of light that comes in irrespective of the energy density of that light. It's a quantum PAR sensor. It measures it from 400 to 700 nanometers. That is great when you do not have far red. Far red starts at 700 and traditionally goes from 700 to 800. For plant vision, and some new research, it's cut down to be a little bit more specific from 700 to 750. And that's where this next sensor comes into play. This is an ePAR sensor. It includes those wavelengths from 700 to 750 nanometers. Now, both of these are Apogee products, and these are great products to use. There's a couple of other really good products out there. These are a great average price point for most people to achieve. I have a third sensor over here. This is a Spectroradiometer, and it will give you the total amount of energy that comes in from 320 nanometers, somewhere around there, all the way up to 1,000 nanometers. And it gives you the exact amount of energy at half a nanometer intervals. So very different than those two PAR sensors, but kind of is like a checks and balances for those two. So now, come over here and let's take a look at the light of these two fixtures here. So table 4 and table 5. Right now, these are putting out very different PAR values, but they are putting out exactly the same ePAR value. And that's the key there. We are measuring and keeping all the treatments equal for ePAR. So, even though we have a significant contribution of far red light here, what we're actually doing is underdriving the main light channel because we're augmenting with far red. And so if I were to hold these two sensors equally over this light here that has no far red, these two sensors are going to read pretty much exactly the same value on, I don't have them on right now, but we can. Now, caveat to this is a completely non-controlled setup, right? So these lights were all set up under very controlled situations. Just a slight shift will put you over a different diode. So they're not going to be exactly the same. They never will be in this situation. But when you have it in a controlled environment, which we do for establishing what driver percent to run them at, they're pretty much exactly the same, plus or minus 5 micromoles. So functionally, when you put them next to each other on this, they are just about the same value. You can see them jumping around because my hands are moving and I'm not staying stable, but they're right around 750, 740, and now I'm so close to the light too. So not viable measurement point here, but just look at the similarity of them. Now, let's move over to this fixture here, which has the far red applied, and you're gonna see two very, very different values. See that? So on the left side, you have your PAR sensor, 400 to 700 nanometers, and on the right, you have your ePAR. And so essentially, what we're doing is we are matching all these lights for their ePAR. And there's we can go into real depth on this in a dedicated series on the impacts of expanded photosynthetic active radiation and understanding that for the growth of plants. But essentially, these are all matched to be exactly the same to account for the impacts of far red on photosynthesis in plants. So yeah, a lot of information there. But essentially, you know, these different treatments here are all the same, different compositions of light.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to measure those outputs correctly. If you're just running your normal PAR meter and you're like, why is it the same when I'm adding all of this extra light, the extra 15 watts of light from the far red? It's probably because your sensor can't carry over to that. And so it's important when trying to measure this on your plans and getting accurate representation that you have the tools and the ability to measure it accurately.
A lot going on here.
A lot going on. Very intensive information, but also really important for the things that we're looking at, especially when it comes to like nutrient consumption later on. Last run, we did see a difference with the applications with far red and the lightning in the leaves versus the ones without it.
Yep.
And then also when it comes to yield data, quality data, all of these different markers, it's going to be important that we note this. So it's also important for you guys to keep in mind when we're doing these trials, these are the things that we're looking at. We're just not usually talking about it directly on Grow Room Weekly because sometimes it can be a little bit complicated for the timing of these episodes of like what we're doing. So next time we're going to talk a little bit more about irrigation and how that ties into what we talked about today and these different lighting intensities and what that looks like food-wise. Good morning, guys. So room 3, today is day 15. John, you want to talk about the trials that are going on in here?
Yeah, so replication of the last run that we did in 3, except the layout of the plants and the strains are different. So Chanel up front and Versace in the back, split tables. We'll talk a little bit about that in irrigation practices and kind of the fine details about that. But table 1 has no far red at the end of the day, and table 2 has far red 5 minutes end of day. And so the front half is Chanel, back half Versace. The last trial we did, both tables were Versace, and it was table layout was the treatment. Really, really interesting results that came out of that. I'm filtering through the dry weight data right now. Just really, really insightful. So excited about that. So far, what I'm seeing in this run, in terms of differences between the two, right? We're only day 15, but I'm seeing exactly what I saw last time at this stage, which is great. Like replication, same process. And yeah, you know, they look to be very, very, very similar at this stage, which is what we saw last time.
Yeah, and then the last thing that we have going on over here is we're doing a topping versus no topping on these Velcro. So the back half clearly taller, that didn't get topped at all, whereas this front half got topped right before everything switched to flower.
Yeah, and also, so like some of this, you can see it on some of them have broken through and they have apical dominance coming back to them, but the majority of them have stayed more uniform. So that's interesting. Apical dominance meaning like that one central leader that's just shooting above the rest, which is what you see in the very back of the room. But when we top these ones, a couple of those plants, one of the primary branches decided that it was going to take over and kind of become the new central leader. And we see that in about 3 or so plants within this treatment group.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And then we just got the front tester zone. We have some frog poison over here and then some lance over here. So we're really happy to see how all this comes down, just a replication of last trial. But let's move over into room 2. Room 2, day 36. Really excited in here. Everything's looking good. There's a lot of terps in here. Perfect clone of what just came down in room 1. You want to talk about the trials?
Yeah, parallel, perpendicular. It's kind of a mirror image of what 1 was. A little bit different, but close enough. And yeah, the only thing really different in here is the Velcro in terms of pot size. So this was that pot size trial. You know, we talked about the relative difference in the height increase between the different strains. We definitely saw a little bit shorter, like less elongation overall through this practice versus the rest of the room. But as you can see, there's a lot of elongation in this room. there's a couple factors, right? So I think the plants were had a little bit extra veg, if I remember.
5 days.
Yeah, so
5 days
extra veg. But they also, this is a HPS top light versus an LED top light with a much higher percentage blue. So you're going to keep them a lot dwarfed in room 1 versus here. And yeah, so we definitely saw help on the elongation side, slightly less elongation relative to the other strains, overall a lot. And yeah, I mean, so far the room is looking really good. Every time I've been walking in here, the numbers look good and the feels good when I walk in. So I expect to see very similar results to what we're probably going to see in 1. 1 came down last week, and you could see differences in the plants, which is really, really good. So waiting on that to dry in the dry room right now. Excited to see what comes of that. Right now I'm drowning in other trials, trying to process through that data, but I'm excited to see the dry flower on room 1 and this room.
Everything's looking good in here. I'm really excited. It's an interesting comparison to really see how this is going to come out with the different plant sizes and see if that carries over for bud size and all of that with this trial data. This room has just been consistently taller, generally speaking, since we started, except for one run in room 1. Everything which had extra veg, everything else has been typically a little bit shorter under those LEDs. So it's nice to be able to have like the different room environments and everything be a completely different room to really get these trials done.
Yeah, and with this one, I expect to see, we'll test this hypothesis, but I expect to see less color uniformity in this room than we saw in 1 with respect to comparing those two, right? Because just simply the height difference in the plant, the penetration of that light, and you're going to have a slightly larger air, like quote unquote dead zone of light because of the height of these plants versus what we saw in 1. But then what does that mean for yield? What does that mean for sellable yield, the distribution of those buds? So it'd be interesting to get it on the sorting table and kind of prove that out.
Cool.
All right, guys, that is it for Grow Room Weekly today. I hope you had a great time touring us around and maybe learned a few things about different sensors, what's important to measure, and how to keep things the same from a lighting perspective in your room.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any questions, just leave them down below. We'll try to get to them and answer them as quickly as we can. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
See you later.